All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a wonderful day. Tomorrow is the big day with CPI, and depending on what happens, the stock market can go crazy. So we got a lot to talk about. I have a couple of different scenarios of what you need to be looking out for, as well as a really big tip on what to watch, especially if you want to make a play on the direction of tomorrow. But before I get into any of that, I need to tell you right now, 1 hour before the bell, that is when the CPI comes out. About 10-15 minutes before that, we will be live, youtube.com/the stock market. You will have all of the data, the interpretation. We'll have analyst comments, anything you could think of, all in real time. So if you are going to be trading this, we better see you there in the morning. But with everything going on today, it didn't really matter much. We hit another high on the year, believe it or not, but now it is all boiling down tomorrow. And then what we have with Powell, we're going to have to juggle a little bit, but what can happen tomorrow is bringing in a lot of expectations. So don't let me hype it up too much. I have a lot that we're going to go over. What I need from you, Chad, a thumbs up on the video. Make sure you're subscribed. And I already told you, we're going to be live for the event. So run it, baby.
Working to the couch, it's the 20 on the left. Live in the hills, but still get a spread. Started with a live, but still reinvest it. Feel how I feel, then you feel like a blessing. I just want the lesson, I just want protection. I'm up and I'm down, but they sound like progression. Farmer never plans if he waits for perfection. Finger to the down.
All right, off the bat, before we get into any of the scenarios, you need to understand the expectations for tomorrow. As far as core, it's expected to come in at 4% flat. Why this is so important? Because unlike the non-farms that we just saw, there is not that much variance. When you go down to headline, that one's expected to come in at 3.1, but when you look at the month over month, you got analysts a little bit more variable when it's all said and done. So this one might surprise a little bit, but all you need to understand is the overall trend and where we are at. So last month, core came in at 4.1, and this is something we were talking about on stream. It's kind of fun. 5.6, 5.5, 5.3, 4.8, 4.7, 4.3, 4.1, and 4. It's been coming down every single month. This has been where a lot of optimism has came from, and that's why tomorrow, if it comes in at 4, it's either going to start basing out, it either bounces up, or you watch it go lower. Don't worry, I'm going to get more into that, but then you go to headline, you could see it's been a little bit more choppier. So hopefully when you see these expectations, people are expecting headlines going to come down a little lower. They're expecting core to stay the same, and this is where we are really going to wrap up the year. So now, as far as those scenarios, what can happen tomorrow? There's a couple of scenarios, and I'm going to start with the most important one. Number one, core drops below 4%. Like I just showed you, people are expecting it to base out. Honestly, with how optimistic everybody has been, I'm surprised that this number for the expectations isn't lower, but given the sticky nature of core, it kind of makes sense. But if core goes below 4 and prints a 3 handle, 3.9, 3.8, everybody is going to get hyped on that. That is the first scenario. The second scenario is that headline drops below 3, and that gives us a 2 handle, which everyone's gonna be like, oh, wow, 2% inflation target. We're going to get there. And then core just comes in at 4, and it doesn't shock anybody. I do think everybody will still get hyped. You're going to see here, most of these outcomes, everybody gets hyped, and they're already hyped before that. That's what is so interesting about tomorrow. Like we've talked about, everything is already priced for perfection, and you've even seen it with the non-farms. Everybody's given it some wiggle room. Now, with the analyst expectations a lot tighter than the non-farms, maybe we put that to the test tomorrow, but that is your second outcome. The third possible outcome is that core goes to 4.6 or higher, and everybody freaks out, and then everybody also tweaks out about the headline, because if core goes up, that means headline is probably going to go with it. But I had it here. What I want you to notice, where did I come up with this number of 4.6? That would take you about 3 months back in terms of progress on inflation. And one thing to note, 4.3, 4.1, and 4, that 3-month average is 4.1. Why that's important? I'm sure you have heard a lot of analysts lately, when the numbers come in in a little bit at the margins, they start bringing up the 3-month average. Guess what? They did that on the non-farms when it came in hotter just a couple of weeks ago, literally last Friday. So that's one thing you got to keep in mind. And then finally, the last take here, which in a weird way I kind of think is the most likely. Everything comes in line, give or take that 0.1 that we saw on headline, and then you get a little bit of reaction pre-market, not much telling of a move intraday, and then everybody punts until Powell. So I don't know how you feel about these scenarios, but hopefully you are smart enough to understand. Obviously, there is way more than these that can happen. The real takeaway is that most market participants are expecting a cooling of numbers. Nobody is expecting too big of a surprise. And once again, you should be familiar if you've been watching this whole inflation dynamic over the last couple of years, this dynamic between core being sticky and being important, you are going to hear a lot from it. One more thing I'll add that's not written down here, you also got to deal with the healthcare costs. Remember, last month people thought that was going to be a big deal, and it didn't hurt us as much, but it did have some increase on the core factors. But we also have to deal with real estate, and surprisingly, everyone's been a little bit quiet about that, even though, like Canada, I think it is responsible for half of their core inflation rate right now. So we're going to see what happens. I just delete that? Yeah, I didn't mean to, but either way, we have a couple of things on the table. I would watch out for that core number, but now I'm going to give you something way better to follow the trading. This is something that I've observed the last couple of times, even with the non-farms. If you are on stream, you've watched me point this out, and it's actually funny how this has been a leading indicator, but I'll tell you right here, right now, when that data comes out at 5:30, I would not follow the market. I would follow the Fed futures. I really think they are going to snitch tomorrow, as well as the analysts. We're going to talk about that, but simply go look at the /ZQ, go get a Fed rate monitor tool, anywhere you get your Fed futures. It sounds like a product. It sounds like this is an advertisement, but either way, the Fed futures, after the data, I would watch for a knee-jerk reaction. And if you notice before the data and after the data, they start moving in a bullish or bearish direction, even though the market will most likely fluctuate all over the place, I would watch this as your leading indicator. If the Fed futures get really bullish off of this data, I think by the end of the day, the market will follow along, and vice versa. If the Fed futures don't like a number and it seems like the market's going crazy, but rate hike odds aren't really playing along, I would be careful towards the end of the day, and that may as well signal a punt for Powell. So not only do you have to watch out for that, but we saw this the last couple of times too. Watch out for those analysts. Literally, right when the data comes out, even with the non-farms, very quickly you will see some people start to talk about, well, it's this. They're going to bring up the average numbers. They're going to find a way. Well, housing went down, so even then everything else was hot. We don't care. That's a good sign. It means soft landing. So even if it comes in hot tomorrow, watch out for the rate cut odds, and then watch out for Nick Timmerhouse. Again, we've been watching him give these updates, and the market and the bulls have been loving it. I know, instead of saying, oh, why? This doesn't make sense. It should be going down. Just pick up on the narrative as people are going about it tomorrow, and you can watch some indicators like bonds, Fed futures, and see if you start to notice, even if the data's not clearly red, if Wall Street starts taking an idea and running with it, we very well may get a reaction because it makes sense leading up into Powell. So that's my final key here for today. It's a big, big day tomorrow, but I really wouldn't sweat it too much. I know that may sound weird, but Powell is the follow-up, and that is what's going to give us this little awkwardness. It's like the CPI, in a way, is whether or not we're going into overtime. So if the CPI doesn't cause a big expectation shift in rates, then Powell is going to be that overtime. Then we get our decision, the punting. I'm giving a lot of football or sports references here, but if tomorrow is a blowout and it's an easy read and everybody feels the soft landing, you've seen that so many times already this year. That's how we got up to yearly highs. Then it's going to make Powell's job either a little harder or a little easier, and we still will have to watch out for that dot plot, but it's definitely going to be an easier day if it is a blowout number. Everything else, though, there's so many risks out there of we either punt, the Fed futures don't move, expectations don't change, even if the analysts get bullish on it, maybe we don't do much. That has kind of been a factor of a lot of these big data events that we have watched. So hopefully you're ready to juggle, but above all else, watch out for that core rate. We'll be there in the morning. We'll see what's going to happen. But now, Let us get into the plays. So, right off the bat, we have a big day, and I'm really excited for these plays because I think there is going to be a lot of opportunity. Yes, you could chase the upside or downside, play the indexes, play the futures. We were talking about Russell being the play of the month here, and that thing has been holding it down. So I am definitely going to be watching out for that. But the first play I got to start with, we dodged a bullet last week, but this thing keeps pulling me back in. It is oil. I don't have a play on this, but it has been the worst consecutive weekly decline in oil on crude in the last 5 years since 2018. And if you haven't noticed on these other day-to-days, oil still likes to move as well as get sprinkled on from all the other global factors. But if everything else goes crazy tomorrow, this could be a place where you capture some volatility, especially if by the time you're ready to make a trade, everything's up 1-2%, or maybe it's down. Watch if oil is kind of in the middle, and then by the cash open middle of the day, you may watch this thing kind of catch up with the general wind of where everything else is pushing. So it does come with a lot of risk because even if tomorrow's good, there's bad oil news. UNG got clapped today on weather updates. There is still a lot of risk, and people are not feeling good about oil. And then depending on if inflation comes down, I wonder if people are going to be like, oh yeah, oil's done. That's why it's down. It's already sold us all this. And then you have a whole different reaction. But I think this one, high risk, high reward tomorrow. I'm definitely going to be looking out for one of these plays. And then play number 2, I'm really hyped on this play because I'm excited to give this to you, especially if you're watching the watch list, baby. Here is my gift to you. KRE. Yes, what is better than the Russell? Regional banks about to break out. Yes, they are a part of the Russell. We've talked about it. Shout out to Trav. He's brought it up on many days where the Russell starts moving, and it has coincided with the bank stocks moving. And I don't know if you've seen this or not, but KRE, it's getting to that breakout point from the beginning of the year. This is where it could get out of the gulag of SVB, and that is a lot of gaps to fill and a lot of movement. So it falls in line with some of the cyclicals. It makes sense with rates, soft landing in the policy. So I would really like this play, but I would not fall in love with it. I'm not saying buy these for the long term, but if tomorrow is good, get ready for them to make up a ground a little bit because they can move a lot. The only downside is, like we've seen with the Russell, it reminds me of the Russell completely, where it's not hitting the all-time highs like everything else, but it's moved up quite aggressively just in the last couple of weeks as the bonds and everything else have calmed down. But I really think this is going to be a fire play tomorrow. If everything is good, I don't know how many eyes are going to be on this one, so it may be a less crowded opportunity, but then I just told you all about it, so I don't know. We'll see what happens, but that is play number 2, and then finally, play number 3, very similar logic. We talked about this, and with all the M&A activity, we may want to bring it back up. IBB, the bios. Biotechs are cyclical. They are also beaten down. And like I'm saying with this whole regional bank stuff, a good day would very well help them. If you go look at the chart, kind of similar. These are some of the more cyclical names that have been clobbered. You've been getting a lot of action too. The M&A activity, even there's the the ASH conference. It's in San Diego. Heard a lot of biotech stuff today off of the morning. If tomorrow is good, people get excited there. If we see more of that cyclical rotation, this is an area I would kind of keep an eye on. I would call it a ghetto rate hike play. It's not as jumpy as ARK because there's some big blue chip names in this index. If you guys have any other biotech indexes, post them below, but the general idea and knowledge and understanding this, I think this could take you a long way and give us some opportunity. So watch out for that. That is play number 3. And then finally, I got one more play, man. Don't get it twisted, okay? Don't get it twisted, man. The last play is puts. Yeah. Why? Because if tomorrow is bad, NQ or puts should be a great deal because nobody is expecting anything bad to happen, and that's really the whole logic with it. Everybody is very bullish into this. If we kind of get a hot reaction, if core gives us something we don't want to see, and it gives us a more, okay, maybe let's wait and see till Powell confirms this data, nobody is buying puts. So like I'm saying here, I would only play it if something bad happens. I'm not saying, okay, buy puts ahead of it to ensure yourself. It's like, no. Just wait till it's confirmed because, again, there is such little put protection out there right now that even after something bad happens, if you're there in the morning, we know it's going to be bad. I do think you will be able to get some downside plays pretty cheap, just like we got some of the upside plays on the non-farms with the NQ on Friday. Only other thing I'd watch out for, Nikki T, bro, that's the kryptonite. Again, these analysts and this soft landing, and if there's just a little sliver of soft landing and they could spin it up and, chop it up however they want, I mean, this will be the kryptonite to any of the downside plays. So keep your head on a swivel. You got opportunities tomorrow. Hopefully this opened up your eyes to stuff beyond Magnificent Seven, the indexes, bonds. We're still going to be in all of that. And I'm holding a ZB. Other than that, I think that's the only other future besides the yen that I'm holding. And then any other plays we've been holding for the last couple of months. I am going to be doing tax losses around December 18th. I'm going to give you a nice video on that, and we're going to go over all of that stuff too. But I do think tomorrow and the next day should create a lot of opportunities. We see where it takes us. And I hope you're ready, but that is your watch list, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure hydrate healthy, ready to go. Make sure post your watch list. Make sure we see you there in the morning. I need the armor on. I need the helmet shining. And I need you to remember, control your mind. If everything was already thrown at you a long, long time ago, you don't need to worry about it today. Don't think cheaply. It's all about substituting the thoughts with something better and not cheap. You feel me? You feel me, Chad? So let's go. Drink that water. Stay hydrated. All that good stuff. Get some good sleep. We're going to be up early tomorrow. But it's game time and horn.